Well, hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Sutra lecture today. My name is Reverend Hung Sher. It is May the 8th today here in Queensland, May the 7th if you're in California, other places. And today we are going to continue our exploration of the Universal Gateway, the Pumanpin, Guanyin Bodhisattva from the Lotus Sutra. So let's get started. And we'll begin today with our Dharma request. And the Dharma request is going to be requested by our very own Chanyu, our coordinator. So let's make 3 half bows to the Buddha. I'll ring the bell. Here we go. First bow. Second bow. Third bow. Okay, I'm going to put my palms together and get ready, and we'll ask Chanyu to please begin the Dharma request now.
阿弥陀佛，恭请大德僧听，为此法会集一切众生，请转妙法轮，教导我们如何了生脱死，离苦得乐，速证无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma will to teach us how to live suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death, and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo sadanto suchedoye olahudi sanmyao sanputosye.
Namo sadanto suchedoye alahadi samyao samputoshye.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even throughout billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. All right. Thank you, Chanyu. Appreciate the kindness in inviting me to speak Dharma, to turn the Dharma Huyo, and join with everyone today in exploring the Dharma Flower Sutra, the Fa Hua Jing, Pumanpin, Universal Gateway chapter. This is something I truly do enjoy doing. My goodness, what can one say? What a treat to have the privilege in a lifetime to be able to find the textual source of Guanyin Bodhisattva's lore, her teaching, and also to be able to unpack it for others. Yesterday, we had a treat. Dharma Realm Buddhist University Symposium invited Professor Yu Chunfang, to give a talk and explain how Guanyin Bodhisattva was introduced into Chinese culture. Her main thesis and the thesis for which one of her many books is the most well-known, most well-regarded, is How Guanyin Bodhisattva Changed Gender. How Guanyin in India, Avalokiteshvara, Avalokita, was a male, and when Guanyin got to China, Guanyin became a female. How did that happen? My goodness. So fascinating stories. And Professor Yu was very kind and answered everybody's questions. And so that was wonderful to have a scholar who has devoted her life to investigating Buddhism's advent in China, and particularly Guanyin Bodhisattva. So that was yesterday. That was great. And we are at CTTB. We are we're involved in the 10,000 Buddhas repentance. So our numbers are down a bit, but it's certainly, that's the path of cultivation, which is, we would hope, would be an important part of the life of anybody who enjoyed. We're in the 10,000 Buddhas repentance. So folks are using their time well to join in an online experience, bowing to 10,000 Buddhas. So that's, we're sharing our normal community with the Buddha Hall, the virtual Buddha Hall. So today we are still in the section of the universal door, universal gateway, of investigating the dangers, the qi, right? 7 kinds of dangers that Guanyin Bodhisattva responds to when requested. And here they are. We're going to start right here and then go across to the English. Okay, everybody, is that big enough? You want a little bigger? Ooh, it's a nice one. It's big, huh? 若复有人临当被害，称观世音菩萨名者，彼所持刀杖寻断断坏，而得解脱。If someone facing deadly harm recites Guanshi Bodhisattva's name, the weapons of the assailants will break apart and he will get away. All right, let's do another. 若三千大千国度，满中夜叉落差，欲来恼人，闻其称观世音菩萨名者，是诸恶鬼尚不能以恶言视之，况复加害。Even if the entire threefold large 1,000-world system were teeming with yakshas and rakshashas bent on vexing people, when the evil demons hear the name of Guanyin Bodhisattva called out by these men, they will not be able to see them with their wicked eyes, much less do them in. And I might mention that that's the pronouns there are gender neutral. Hear the name of Guanyin Bodhisattva called out by these women, also fine, no different. Okay, one more. 若复有人若有罪，若无罪，求歇枷锁，前系其身，称观世音菩萨名者，皆悉断坏，其得解脱。If there is a person, whether innocent or guilty, who is locked in stocks or shackled by ropes and chains, her fetters will snap and fall away, letting her go free as soon as he or she invokes Guanshi Bodhisattva's name. All right, so those are 3 of the 7, the list of 7 kinds of harm, danger, vexations, troubles that can come into people's lives. And the key in each one, I'm going to outline it here on my screen, recites Guanshi Bodhisattva's name. When the demons hear the name of Guanshi Bodhisattva called out by these people, as he invokes Guanyin Bodhisattva's name. Okay, that's the theme running through all three of these hypothetical disasters, life-threatening situations whereby somebody could come to grievous bodily harm, even, life-threatening. The key, the thread holding all the beads together on the string is Cheng Guanshi and Pusa Mingzhe, right? Reciting the name of Guanyin. Yesterday, as we listened to Professor Yu talk about the entire corpus of appearances in Buddhist literature and in Chinese culture of Guanyin, she mentioned that reciting Guanyin Bodhisattva's name is the key. She said yesterday there are 80 sutras in the 1600 sutras in the Dazangjing, the Sanzangjing, the Tripitaka, the three baskets of Buddhist literature. There are 80 sutras where Guanyin shows up. When I've been explaining how widespread Guanyin Bodhisattva's appearances are, I came up with like 10, such obvious ones like the Heart Sutra, right? Guanzizai Pusa Xingshen Boro Bolo Mi Doshi. When the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was practicing the profound prajnaparamita, right? That's the Heart Sutra. That's an obvious one. Then we have Erstor. Erstor Bodhisattva has a chapter devoted to Guanyin Bodhisattva. Then we have the Avatamsaka, where Guanyin Bodhisattva shows up along with who? To teach Sudana, Shan Cai Tongzi, right? That's one of the Shan Zhishi, one of the good spiritual friends. So she said 80. Yeah, wow, my goodness. And of course, we know our Dharani Sutra that Shifu introduced the Great Compassion Mantra to us, the Tolo Mi Jing. So 80 altogether. That's just amazing. She also pointed out one of the very interesting aspects of Guanyin Bodhisattva as Guanyin enters the Chinese culture is Guanyin pairs with Erstor, with Dizang Pusa frequently. So she said that's unique in the Chinese version of the Buddha Dharma, Hanchuan Fojiao, where Guanyin and Erstor Bodhisattva are seen as a team. She just mentioned that as one of the instances of Guanyin. But today, here in our section of text this morning, this afternoon for many of you, what we have is the basic foundation, the theme of why the Pu Manpin, the universal door, the universal gateway chapter is so popular. The practice has a name. It's called Shun Sheng Jiuku, Shun Sheng Jiuku, saving us based on our cries, following the sound and relieving from suffering, right? That's Guanyin's fundamental identity. And I might say this is not a Buddhist specific practice. If Guanyin only saved Buddhists who called her name, her practice wouldn't be as popular, as widely known throughout Chinese culture. So how interesting, right? What does it say? It says, here's our hypothetical. If there's somebody, Lindang Beihai, about to be harmed, facing deadly harm, and you recite Namo Guanyin Pusa, the weapons break apart. This could also include when faced with non-human danger, right? I was having a conversation with Alex the other day about box jellyfish. the, Here in Australia, yeah, I know that's one of those cliches, right? That Australia has many natural features. There are many features of nature in Australia that are harmful to human life. Everything from crocodiles to sharks. But before crocodiles or sharks are a danger to you, you have to go where they live. Crocodiles don't live here in the Gold Coast unless you're in the Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary. Then you meet, or David Flay Nature Park. Then you meet crocodiles. Sharks, well, there are sharks. You can go right off Broad Beach, right off Burleigh Heads, and encounter sharks. Luckily, we have shark nets and we have shark patrols. Now we have shark drones. One of the most promising protections against shark attacks these days are drones, because sharks, surfers and swimmers are usually in shallower water, right? And sharks show up against the sand from a drone. There's all these scary videos of swimmers and surfers who are blissfully ignorant of the large great white shark sniffing around under them, and the drone reveals that the shark is right there. And now they're employing this technology in the lifeguards and all, who are fabled heroes along Australian beaches, who are glued to their computer screens watching the drones identify sharks from a distance, and then getting on their jet skis and going out and alarming everybody, get into the beach because there are sharks about. So here in Australia, we've got, crocodiles and sharks, but we have many other nasty. Alex, type in the chat box what that other, the blue, what was it? There's the box jellyfish, which swim fast and have these long I'm gonna harm tourism in Australia if I tell everybody about all the nasty things. But I would think that those the Universal Door chapter, the section on the harm that can come to people here in Australia would be very applicable. Sydney trapdoor funnel web spiders and eastern brown snakes and such. Yeah. We don't have bullets flying around in the air that we have in the East Bay, but so that's one, is assailants with fur and with stingers and with fangs and venom and such. Further, which I think is fascinating, our Universal Door chapter says, suppose the entire, and this is the Sanqian Daqian Huodu, is of our Buddhist data keeper, Jin Yongshi, who keeps follows out those decimal points and numbers of zeros. He has identified this as a billion worlds. So if a billion world system were filled, teeming with yakshas and rakshashas, who are ghosts and demons, right? Yakshas are part of the ghost realm. Rakshashas are part of ghosts are a natural phenomenon in between bodies, right? Rakshashas are demons who are happy with their body, and they're not traveling. Yakshas are on the way, the fluid through the Gui Fa Jie, right? The Gui Fa Jie. Rakshashas and demons tend to stay where they are, but in any case, they are bent on vexing people. So what's fascinating here is this is a little view into the spirit world. And when I'm a boomer, and when I grew up, there weren't such things as video games. About the best we could do were Marvel comics and superhero types and hybrids like the Green Hornet, shapeshifter types. And what else? Batman, of course, and Spider-Man and stuff. But they were still within the realm of the senses. When you get to demons and ghosts, for example, Japanese anime and manga, that's a whole new world for Generation Xers and Generation Z types, millennials, grew up. I guess Dungeons and Dragons too, that generation, expanded the imagination to include demons and ghosts and beings who were not human and didn't hope to be human and were often vexing humans, not always, but often. So here is a text that has been among humans for 2,500 years minimum, and it opens directly to this spirit realm and says these are nasty beings. Su Ji Gui is a translation of yakshas. We call them speedy ghosts. They're fast-moving ghosts, not always evil. And in some cases, in Medicine Buddha, right? If you look at the Medicine Buddha Sutra, there are 12 yaksha generals with names who are Dharma protectors, whose job is there to help the Buddha turn the Dharma wheel. So yakshas, when they meet someone who is absolutely fearless and who is completely good, like the Buddha, they they turn back to what is wholesome. So I think that's fascinating. That yakshas, when they meet virtue, are transformed. Rakshashas, I don't know if there are any stories, at least I haven't heard any recently, of Rakshashas who were in fact undercover bodhisattvas, bent on good with wholesome intention. The Rakshashas whom I know, who I have heard of, are pretty much all dark souls who are out to do harm to humans by eating them, right? These are spiritual beings who feast on blood and flesh and such. So anyway, the world of video games and manga and anime have now made Rakshashas and yakshas and such kind of, and a whole host of awful, nasty baddies. They have become pretty commonplace, things that kids know about and deal with. So here's the sutra saying, yes, indeed, here they are. And Guanyin Bodhisattva will hide you. They won't be able to see you. You will get a invisibility cloak like Harry Potter had, right? And you won't be seen by these baddies. Yeah. I have a story about that, but we'll save that for a minute. Then the last one we read today, which is I think number 6 of our 7. Yeah, we've got one more to go. This one is controversial. And the question always comes up right here. 若有罪,若无罪, right? If you're innocent or guilty, you've been caught by the police, you've been apprehended by the state, you've been called in for questioning. Knock, knock, knock. Come with us down to the station. Uh-oh, right? So if that's the case with you, and it specifies you're locked in stocks, shackled by ropes and chains, the sutra gives us all these different kinds. 酬谢枷锁, right? Different kinds of restraints that in China, they knew what they were. In India, I'm sure they knew what they were. We call them handcuffs or shackles. If that's your situation, you've been arrested, you're behind bars, you are detained by the police, whether innocent or not. If you invoke Guanyin Bodhisattva's name, the fetters snap and fall away. All right, so instantly, when people hear this for the first time, there's always someone who says, excuse me, I have a question. Are you implying that, right? So criminals get a go free pass? Does that happen because of Guanyin? Is Guanyin here aiding and abetting criminals? That's the question. And of course not the case. Well, what does it mean? Well, that's what it says, you know? So yeah, that's what it says. The unjustly detained people, political prisoners, for example, would be able to find justice if they invoke Guanyin Bodhisattva's name. Now, I'm gonna say one thing that helps understand what's going on here is you actually have to recite Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa. Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa. The great leveler in all these stories is, did you actually recite Guanyin's name? Right? And that's why they say, don't 平时不烧香及时报佛祖, right? Ordinarily, they don't bother to light incense, but when times get tough, they grab for the Buddha's feet. You know that idiom, right? Usually they forget, but then, when the fat hits the fan, right? Mixing my metaphors. When it counts, they're suddenly very sincere. All right, Guanyin Bodhisattva knows that. That's just human nature, right? So we, cultivators of the way, people who would spend an hour on a Friday afternoon listening to a lecture like this, or an early Sunday morning, or even earlier in China on a Saturday morning, people like us should recite Guanyin's name ordinarily if we hope to have the response when the time comes. That's the non-secret secret, right? That's how it works, is if we are traveling through our day and we're walking on the way to lunch, or we are waiting to get on the subway, on the platform, if we are just with our head on the pillow, sleep hasn't arrived, those are perfect times to connect to Guanyin, to establish our relationship with Guan Shi and Bodhisattva and hold it close, right? Namo Guan Shi Pusa. And that's one of the real benefits of having music with it, right? I'm going to reach for my banjo again. We people who don't see themselves as speakers of Chinese can switch to Sanskrit, right? Put the melody in there and let the song kind of roll over you there on the pillow, right? Half Chinese, half Sanskrit, right? Probably not a good idea to encourage you to sing that when you go to sleep and then sing it because I'm going to put you to sleep. Oh man, it was the best lecture I've ever. It was really comfortable. He just sang that, I fell right asleep. But it works, right? Actually, I'll tell you the truth. Shifu gave me some advice once. He said, if you have any problems getting to sleep, he said, recite 3 great compassion mantras. He said, as you are there, ready, in your nightshirt, ready to go to sleep. 3 great compassion mantras. And he said that with a twinkle, because why? If you get to the end of mantra number 3 and you're not asleep, it's not working for you. I don't even get through the first one before I'm asleep, right? But that's just fine. Guanyin Bodhisattva is happy to let us wander into dreamland with the mantra. The point is that if we recite ordinarily, when the time comes, when 及时, right? When we're really in trouble, when we need it, it's there. We don't forget. All right. So, so Bernie and Xingfei said, right. Reciting the name also. Recite Guanyin's name before sleep works too, just like the Da Bei Cho. All right. So if a guilty person has sincere recitation, they have the potential to turn to good. Yeah, the guy in the tree who called out Namo Buddha as the tiger chewed at the tree bark. Correct. Yeah, good. So it is that Guanyin is opening the Puman, the universal gateway, widely, opening it wide for us. So, 若有罪,若无罪, whether guilty or not, there are many stories of people who were unjustly charged, right? Picked up and detained for political reasons or for revenge or just because the person in authority had power issues, right? I've got a story for you just like that. Are you ready? Now, people who read Chinese have a much better time with this than those who don't, but I'm going to take you to the place where I was when I first encountered the Buddha Dharma in a bilingual translation of the 6 Patriarchs Dharma Jewel Platform Sutra, Liu Zu Fa Bao Tanjing, published by Seton Hall University Press. And by the way, I'm going to put it out there. If anybody has a copy in their library or can find online, that is to say, if anybody online sees available through some book collector one of those old editions of either the Dao De Jing, the book of Lao Tzu, or the Xiao Jing, the Sutra of Filial Respect, or the Liu Zu Fa Bao Tanjing, the 6 Patriarch Sutra, published by Seton Hall University Press back in the early 60s, the late 50s, please send me an email. I'd like to know about it. Dr. John Zhu Jiao Shou, Zhu Bingmin Jiao Shou, was director or one of the faculty of Seton Hall when those were issued. They were lovely, and those were indeed the very texts that opened to Chinese for me, which opened to the Buddha Dharma. So people say, why did you become a Buddhist? And I say, well, it's Chinese language. It was those books. They, all of them have on the frontispiece, you open the front cover, the back cover, and those binding pages have a very lovely sepia toned picture of a forest in Asia. There's bamboo, there's a walkway and rocks. So I can't find them. They've been around a long time, and it's in somebody who was reading or studying Chinese or teaching it back in the 50s and 60s. Those libraries will have a copy. So please send me an email or a text if anybody knows where one is available online, because I will collect it just as a memento I refer to those often, and I'm very grateful to Dr. Zhu and Seton Hall University Press for putting out these beautiful bilingual, Chinese English facing with notes of a Taoist, a Buddhist, and a Confucian text. The Tao Te Ching, the Xiao Jing, and the Liu Zu Tan Jing. So my goodness, that anybody involved in that kind of program, your efforts are bearing fruit. If I'm an apple, I felt I came from that tree. My goodness. So here's our story. Look at the picture. Terrific picture. Guanyin Bodhisattva is here. Bai Yi Guanyin, the white robe Guanyin, with her willow branch and ambrosia in the vase. And down below, somebody is about to be executed, and their sword broke. Look at that. Yeah. Can't kill him if your sword breaks. Song Dynasty, Yongming Yanshou, the Dhyana master, before he left home, was in a place called Qiantangjiang, Money Store River, Money Bank River. When he was an official, he was a public servant there in the civil service, and he himself, Yongming Yanshou, when he was a layman still, was a very kind-hearted, benevolent natured individual. And he was also very generous. He was a benefactor, a donor. And one of the things that he did always was encourage people to stop killing and to cherish life. Right? This is you get a picture of who he was. He also cultivated reciting the Buddha's name, especially reciting the name of Guanyin Bodhisattva, the sacred name of Guanyin Bodhisattva. So we get a sense of who he was. Really good-hearted guy, didn't kill, told people to cherish life. He himself was a benefactor, generous, cultivated Buddhist practices, particularly devoted to Guanyin Bodhisattva's name. So on one occasion, he was betrayed, Wu Gao. He was, there's a name for that, slandered. He was falsely accused of being a greedy official who the accusation said he had stolen silver. In other words, he put public monies in his own pocket. But it was a slanderous, harmful charge. In fact, he hadn't done such a thing, but he was accused of doing that. So the officials in charge, in their confusion, sentenced him to death on the spot, right? So after the sentence was levied, after he was indicted, he was handed over to the executioner, the official in charge of carrying out executions, whose name was Xu Zixin. Mr. Xu, renew yourself. Self-renewal, Xu was his name. So Mr. Xu knew that this new fellow who'd been brought over to him in handcuffs was in fact a layman, a Buddhist layman who cultivated Buddhist practices. For moreover, he had a suspicion that this was a false charge, that it was fake news, it was misinformation. And even so, that he was convinced that this person was not guilty, still he was not the decision maker. He only carried out his orders, so there was nothing he could do to save him. So, 当时还未出家. So the Dhyana master Yongming Yanshou, before he left home, this man, because he sincerely believed in the Buddha Dharma, he knew that cause and effect is never off by even the slightest bit. And he also knew that everything in the world is impermanent. Nothing lasts forever. So he had long ago given up any concern for amassing blessings or fearing harm. All he did, instead of worrying about the past or the future, he simply, with a single mind, recited the name of Guan Shi Yin Pusa and didn't even have a thought for fame and riches or what he was losing, any of those. All he did was Namo Guan Shi Yin Pusa. So the time came for his execution, and the executioner raised up his sword. Apparently they were chopping heads at this time. Raised up his executioner's blade and aimed it right at his neck, where the sword was going to remove his head. And a voice shouted out, "Stop." A commanding voice said, "Stop." And the sword in his hand broke into 3 pieces. Now, the chief warden, Xu Zixin, who was overseeing the execution, when he himself, and then the executioner, the man who was carrying out the deed, and everybody in the audience or whoever was there saw what had just happened, they were astonished, shocked, and they stopped the execution. They put a halt to the head chopping that was about to happen. Xu Zixin, the chief warden, took the events of the day and reported them up, took them up the chain of command and said, we just had a miracle happen down here on the killing floor. And he explained that the person who was about to be executed was in fact a good-hearted Buddhist layman who would ordinarily never, ever think about enriching himself because of greed and embezzling money from the government. And undoubtedly, it was the case that somebody was simply trying to hurt him, that he was being falsely, unjustly accused of these crimes. And that's why the bodhisattvas intervened and protected him. So once the emperor or whoever was in charge at the time, this is the Song dynasty, so either the local or the federal authorities found out about this, what's the word? They forgave his offense, and returned him to his original office. So he was completely exonerated from the crime and pardoned. That's the word I was looking for. He was pardoned. When this was over, Chan Master Yongming Yanshou understood that the changes of causes and conditions in the world, blessings and catastrophes, are certainly impermanent. They're very fluid. So seeking in this world for name and profit is futile. So with that realization, of course, he came, within one thought, vindicated. There we go. He became one thought of losing his head, right? So right at that point, he let the affairs of the world go. He left home, cultivated the way, and became an exemplary Sangha member, famed throughout his generation. The key, he recited Guanyin Bodhisattva's name with a single mind. How about that? So there we go. That's a case. Now that's Song Dynasty, right? So that's the 12th century, but still, we remember it today. And it's one of those stories. And you think, is that possible? Yeah, definitely. Guanyin Bodhisattva helps just like that. If we ordinarily recite her name and we remember, we don't forget at the time of disaster to recite. All right, vindicated. Yeah, oh boy, oh boy. At this time, I'm going to take us back to my 13-year-old self in a small branch library in Toledo, Ohio. Someone who has just discovered Chinese language as an elective in high school. Rare, unusual to have Chinese available. But what it lit in my life, in my mind, was so powerful that it propelled me put me on the road that led to who I am now, a Buddhist bhikshu. So what I'm talking about is translation. Because Dr. Zhu and others at Seton Hall, they actually had government money for translation. And then not only did I receive the fruits of their work by reading the books they translated, I later went to summer school in Chinese at Middlebury, having received a National Defense Title, what was it back then? Title II, Title IV grant to go to summer school, administered by Dr. John Zhu, who was an advisor to several presidents in the Department of Education, administering money to students like me who otherwise would never have been able to go to a summer language program. So my goodness, how grateful, yin shui si yan. When you drink the water, you remember the source. So gratitude for the hand given up to me. And the key was translation. Dr. Zhu, who used to say things like Dharma and Dharma Lai, Dharma Chao, they followed the teachers. Yeah, he spoke like that. Here is on the screen. Can you see? Dharma Realm Buddhist University offers a certificate in Buddhist translation. And had I seen this back then, I would have wanted to make my way to California post haste. In fact, I did. I went to UC Berkeley with that in mind. I just put that into the chat box if anybody wants to click on it. Look at DRBU. There are programs for degrees in graduate programs, undergraduate programs, and a certificate in Buddhist translation. Here's the, let's see, Okay, program description is here. Here's somebody giving a guest lecture. Here are the programs and outcomes. Here's some students who were there and professors. Campus life and requirements. Here's the course descriptions. What you study there, what it's like. Reading seminar, translation workshops. Here's the faculty and staff. Guest lectures. And I noticed my name isn't there, although the picture will tell you that I was a guest lecturer. Interesting. Special lectures? No. But tremendous, tremendous program. Dharma Buddhist University. And the resources in the library and such. So just to say, my goodness, if I had had this available to me back then, although I don't regret where I did go, I was delighted to be at UC Berkeley, but this is a rare jewel for anyone who feels like perhaps they could also open a door, a universal door, a gateway for someone like me who is now looking for a way to find the road back to their own nature. So interesting. And to then open it back up in a variety of languages for others. Then this is maybe a program that you might investigate. Certificate in Buddhist Translation, Dharma Buddhist University. Just saying, because this is quite wonderful. If you don't talk about it, people won't know about it, right? So do investigate. Click on that link and take a look. All righty. We have one more disaster next week. There's a very large turkey right outside my window. Hello. We have one more difficulty to investigate. We're bringing you back face to face with all these difficulties after every week. So that's next week. And then what follows after that is the 3 poisons that Guanyin Bodhisattva protects against, and stories about those: greed, anger, delusion. Following that, we have Guanyin Bodhisattva's granting of 2 wishes: a wish for a boy child, a wish for a girl child, right? So lots coming up ahead. We're going really slowly, but these stories are so good and they're hidden. You know, for example, if somebody said, well, what would I translate? We need a good English book of Guanyin Bodhisattva responses. Professor Yu, in her talk yesterday, mentioned how the rich literature of people who've just kept their ears open and collected stories of Guanyin Bodhisattva's responses, how she appears on every side. So there it is. All right, let's transfer the merit with Medicine Buddha's mantra. India, the situation of COVID in India is blood chilling. There is tremendous suffering in India currently. So if we can recite this mantra, there's COVID suffering in every country, but India is particularly hard hit at the moment. So we can send out this goodness wherever you would like it to go. All right, so let's recite sincerely and transfer the merit. Here we go. Swaha. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Madhurya Pravarajaya Ganta Gantaya Arhate Samyak Sambuddhaya Yata Vasaji Vasaji Samgate Swaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Madhurya Pravarajaya Gata Gataya Arahate Samyak Sambuddhaya Yata Vasaji Vasaji Vasaja Samgate Swaha. Have a week full of blessings, peace of mind, satisfaction, and joy. See you all next week. Thanks for joining. Amitofo, Namo Guanshi and Pusa.